Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, another secret Twitch stream once again on this Sunday morning from Chicago, Illinois. We fly over beautiful downtown. My God, man, it is absolutely gorgeous out today, by the way, and this city is just it's just magnificent, really. Pretty much obsessed with all of the architecture around here, but I do want to wish you all on this nice little Sunday morning because, well, we got plenty to talk about on good old Bitcoin, having a massive move to the downside while I was sleeping. In fact, all of this downside volatility happening over the past week while I'm sleeping, which is kind of annoying, but you know, that's fucking par for the course in Bitcoin land. Anyways, as always, I do want to wish you well, and I do want to wish you the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest on this nice little Sunday, whether you're praying to, you know, real Jesus or whatever denomination that you have. It's, as always, we believe in Goat Jesus over here on Krown's Crypto Cave. And with that said, let's get into the live scene right here, right now, because goddamn it, Bitcoin is moving, baby. And I'm gonna initiate that teleportation. I'll see you in there. See you in there. Come on, beam me up, beam me in, and there we are. Okay, so starting off with the lower time frames here. 4 hour is very interesting to me right now. So if you've been tuning into these videos for the past couple weeks now, we've been following this golden cross and death cross for the last couple weeks, and there's a lot to be said about it. So I'm going to put on all the moving averages that are relevant right here. And what's up, Eom? Good to meet you, man. Welcome to Twitch, my friend. Looking at this right here, we have the green 50 exponential moving average, the purple 200 exponential moving average, and then the white 200 simple moving average, which offer up a very well-defined signature that we've seen historically speaking. So I'm not going to go through the full kit and caboodle here. If you want that, definitely go check out my last video that I uploaded in the long-term analysis playlist last Sunday, I believe it was. But basically, I've gone through all of the death crosses and golden crosses on the 4 hour digital time frame between these two guys, the green and the purple once again, and I found that on average we see them play out, you know, death cross to golden cross about 2 weeks, usually about 10 to 20% to the downside after it gets initiated, and then more importantly, once we get the golden cross, and here's like the actual fun shit about this, once we get the golden cross, on average between about 2 to 4 months, Bitcoin actually doubles. In price. So from this area right on over here, we got golden crossed at about 10,200, 10,300. So that would suggest that historically speaking, if this does play out with what we've seen in the past, then within the next 2 to 4 months, we should see Bitcoin double off this area right on over here, which would actually put us at new all-time highs, as you probably know, as that would put us at somewhere like what 20,500, 20,600 region. You know, again, a pretty massive move. Anyways, there's a few things to be aware of though with this, because while I do think that like all the higher time frames are quite bullish here, lower time frames and timing a move like this can be a little bit more tricky, as Bitcoin has been hinting at some downside, and there certainly are a lot of things that are not necessarily as painting as a rosy picture, but more importantly, with the 4 hour right on over here, we do see that historically speaking, we typically do come back down and test around the purple 200 exponential moving average and white 200 simple moving average. So I'm just going to scroll us back into the last like kind of comparable time frame to this, and this is basically 2015, 2016, 2017 essentially, where we got the turnaround from the bear market to the bull market. And you can see, a first little signature right on over here. We get the death cross, we get the golden cross. Once the exponentials get above the simple, and we come back down and test either the 200 simple or 200 exponential, they're kind of one and the same, essentially. That's at the point when Bitcoin really starts to put in the lows and marches up for that next major run. And again, these runs right on over here to the tune of about 100%. I mean, quite literally a 2x off the lows. This one done in about 124 days right there. But more importantly, when we go through it a little bit more, you do see this one's a little bit of a quicker stint. Of course, this one on the lower side, a little bit of an outlier to the downside, actually about 50% to the upside. And more importantly, I once saw a goat eat a tin can. How the fuck did that even happen, Mr. Confetti? How you doing, by the way, my friend? Give grains equals get gains. No, do not have the grains, man. It will destroy my colon, my friend. Anyways, looking at this right and over here, we do see, death cross, golden cross. This one takes about a week. But more importantly, once the two exponentials get above the white 200 simple moving average right and over here, Bitcoin does come down and actually officially test right on the 200 simple. And then boom, that's the last major down before the next explosive price action, which again, this one only about 56%. Again, only 56%. I mean, that's fucking crazy. That's still a pretty damn impressive move. Then we get this next stint right and over here, about 2 weeks from death cross to golden cross. More importantly, we get the exponentials above the 200 simple simple right here, and then boom, massive price increase, 150% to the upside. But more importantly, look at this. We come down and we test that 200 exponential moving average within, a pretty damn proximal area, about a little bit under 1.5%. We get close to testing it. So that's really what I want to get off on this video right now, because we do see the same sort of thing, happening in the present times. Another example right on over here, death cross, golden cross, gets both the exponentials above the white 200 simple. It comes down and tests both these guys at the same time. We actually break it for a second, but no opens and closes below it, more importantly. And then what happens after that? Well, major, massive price increase once again to the tune of, Jesus Christ, I think this one was about 100, another 100%, so another 2x off the lows. And then we do the same thing right on over here, death cross, golden cross, get the exponentials above the white 200 simple, boom, off to the races. But more importantly, we come down and we test around the 200 simple. Again, a degree of, a margin of error here, but about a 1.5% again. And then off to the races. This one a little bit more intense, of course, going all the way from about $4,000 to $20,000. So kind of like the ending drive of a full-on parabolic rally. But we see the same sort of signature going on right over here. We got death cross, golden cross, takes about 2 weeks from the 22nd of July to the 4th of August. And now we've actually seen both the exponentials officially get above the white 200 simple. So if you're talking about this, at some point in time, someone's going to get very mad at me and they're going to say, you're hindsight trading right now. Krown, you suck. It's like, okay, we've been talking about this for a while. And this is what I really want to talk about, because realistically, over a long period of time, very little happens. Very little actually happens, and we're just kind of documenting this, one by one. And just understand that, for this price action to really evolve, it quite literally just needs time to transpire. So when people are always, talking about major, massive moves happening all the goddamn time, I just, this is just shedding light on the fact that very rarely do we actually get those. More than anything, it's, it's a game of sideways. But my point is here is that, yes, we have gotten the exponentials above the white 200 simple. We got a pretty nasty move to the downside yesterday night. But are we within that degree of margin of error that we were kind of looking for in the past? Well, as you can see right here, Bitcoin is about 3% off the low. So it'd be about 2x of the most outlierish case that we had, in the past. So that is a little bit concerning. But more importantly than anything, we're going to start to see this really line up with a few different things. So here's what I can say about this. I would actually treat this as the test of the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average as it is, even though we didn't officially come back down. And the reason why I say that is because on the higher time frames, we are starting to see a lot of things line up. So I do think that is appropriate to kind of come in with that sort of a mentality. If we go over here to the daily and put on the 21 exponential moving average, you can see that basically Bitcoin has come back down and tested it. This is good enough for me as getting close to it. And more importantly, we've had a good pick me up above it. To me, this is getting front ran. I think that a lot of people's eyes are on something like this. I think a lot of people are looking at the same. I mean, obviously people are looking at the same thing. Everyone's thinking the same thing in this market. This market's tilting a little bit more to the bullish side. I think people are getting a little bit more exuberantly bullish, but for good reason. And you're going to see areas like this get front run, which is exactly what we saw right in over here. So I would run with the assumption that Bitcoin had just put in that last little low, as long as we are essentially above the yellow 21 exponential moving average on the daily. Is that helpful? I mean, it's actually not that helpful, just because, by the time we actually violate it, how much time has transpired, it probably happens pretty fast. So it's not all that helpful. But more importantly, the way to kind of judge this trade going forwards here is the same. Do we break down further south? Well, then I'm looking at this area right over here at about 10.7 to 10.75 region, basically like a full-on test on these two guys. But for now, I think that it is appropriate to run with the assumption that we actually just saw that test to the downside, and this is the time to, if you were going to take that trade, that was your chance right there at about $11,000. Again, can I be wrong in this? Yes, absolutely. But understand where I'm kind of wrong on that if it does happen. And you could probably make the decision on maybe like an hourly right on over here. Yeah, if we start to close any sort of hourly dildos below about 11,250, so right around this region right here, let me actually put on a nice horizontal here so we can all look at the same thing. There we go. If we close any sort of an hourly dildo below this region right here, then yes, this area will unlikely operate as that low, and we will very, 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 very likely head down to at least 10.8, 10.7 region and officially test them. If not lower, I mean, it could also be that this is going to be the first time that signature doesn't work out. Happens sometimes, although I wouldn't really be putting my money on it. But and for full disclosure, I am long. And I did buy more at about 11,100-ish region. So that's essentially what I'm looking at right over there. By the same token, I do believe that this will be confirmed to the upside. This, or maybe not confirmed. Well, no, we can say that, yes. I think it's appropriate to finally say that. I would say that it's appropriate to say that this is confirmed to the upside. We have a major macro change in behavior, and this is going to be a big thing today. This is a fucking massive thing today. We've literally been waiting for like a year and a half on this, but we will have confirmed a major massive macro change behavior if Bitcoin can get back above this past prior liquid zone, which I'm going to put in right now. And this is incredibly fucking important. This is something that I actually don't see too many people talking about, but I'm sure plenty of people know about it. But this area right on over here, remember this from 2018? We had a massive bull trap right around the $12,000 region. You see Bitcoin comes all the way down from 20,000 to 6,000. It doubles in price action. Everyone was getting super bullish around this region. In fact, it was a great case study of institutional order flow dynamics at play, as essentially market movers were creating the illusion of a full-on reversal. But did we ever really change anything up here? No, absolutely not. We never even got a fucking higher high, by God, for fuck's sake. But more importantly, this area is now a major massive pivot on the on price action. You can see that Bitcoin played off of it for a very long time. So let's actually just extend this going forwards here, and let's see if it lines up, and let's see if it kind of helps shed light on the current price action. And by the way, I won't be I won't be interacting too much with chat during these Twitch live streams, just because I do want to kind of treat this as like a singular upload. So if you do donate, I do apologize, but I'm not going to it's probably going to be difficult for me to like directly address it. But I see you over there. Hey, what's up, Wick? Yeah, I want some bit long as well, man. I want some bit long as well. Anyways, so you can see that we extend this forwards here, and what happens, we see that this area is still very much being respected. This is exactly what we want to see in an area like this. That tells us that this is a major pivot on price action. Let's line this up with something else. Put on the volume profile, and you do see the volume profile showing like the last of the Mohicans for the higher value nodes here. I mean, this is not high value node shit. Like, this is high value node. This is high value node. This is not high value node right here, but it is relative to the encompassing price action. And more importantly, you can see that if we break above, there ain't nothing doing above. I mean, shit, we can talk about this basically like 14,000 region right here. I mean, is it that relevant? I suppose yes, we did catch a wick in there. And then we could talk about this region right on over here. But you can, essentially, you're going to see Bitcoin rip once again. And in fact, we can create the same sort of liquid zone in this next region above this guy right on over there from about 16.4 to 17.2 region, which we actually will have some measure moves pointing towards there if Bitcoin does break above this blue box. Anyways, my point is, in a big focus on a video like this, especially for Sunday, as we do have the weekly doodle closing later tonight in about, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. If we see the weekly close anywhere inside this blue box territory, which is about 11,500, we'll call it 11,500 to be a little bit more on the conservative side. You could say maybe like 11.8. If we see Bitcoin close there or higher, I would say that this is resolution on this as a whole, and we will see much higher prices, as this will be considered a major massive breakout. We have been unable to close. Well, not we have been unable to close, but Bitcoin's been unable to close any sort of weekly dildos past this region for well over a year and a half, and this has been the ripe for fuckery area on price action ever since then. So very important. As Bitcoin goes on here, just making sure that I'm recording, make sure that my mic's working. Okay, good. Anyways, oh, Big Bob's Meat Stick. I fucking love that name, man. So good. Anyways, there's this gay guy who harasses me, actually, and his name's Bob, so it reminds me of him. No, he's actually a really nice guy, but it's funny as fuck. Anyways, looking at this right here, if we actually do close above this region, then yes, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to explode much higher over the next few months. This target right here would be kind of like a more medium-term target, about 13,700, 14,000-ish region, and then above there, we can talk about further targets, maybe around like 15,000 and then 16,000. But realistically, Bitcoin is just on a general trajectory to get back to its prior highs if that were to happen. And I know that's a little bit more aggressive thing for me to say than I'm typically comfortable with stating, but I do believe that. Anyways, we can come up with a measure move based off this as well if we actually do get the breakout, which again has yet to be had. Looking at this area right and over here, something like this, if we do a little bit of a regression, it would be about right. And we can look at this as a massive flag, right? So if this is a flag, then the measure move on this would be pointed towards somewhere right around, actually, this is going to say about 18,000. I don't really believe that. I think it'd be somewhere between about 16,000 and about 17,000. Somewhere in this region right and over here is where we likely find some resistance. depending upon how you kind of take this poll. So I did a little bit more of an aggressive one, if you want to call it that. But I believe we'd probably be looking at something like 16 to 17,000 over the next like month or two if we actually do get that breakout. It's not going to happen at the snap of fingers. It's not going to happen, exactly the second that we get that weekly close above that region, assuming that we even get that weekly close above that region. But if we do, then I would just generally be looking in that vicinity over the over the following months. I would be generally bullish, essentially. Anyways, looking at Bitcoin price action from lower time frame perspective, once again, right on over here. Again, it's pretty damn cut and dry on the lower time frames actually right now. Bitcoin's making it quite easy. You have your 11,150 support right on over here. As long as Bitcoin's above there, no real major issues on this consolidation right here. We got the symmetrical triangle breaking out to the downside, just going a little bit sideways here. I'd say that this next weekly close is going to drive everything else. Everything else is just not as important as the weekly close. If the weekly close is above 11,500, I'm generally bullish for much higher prices. Looking at this whole formation here, this whole formation over the last 2.5 months as being resolved to the upside, which would, that's a 2.5 month consolidation, which is building up a fucking massive cause to the upside if we do resolve it that way. By the same token, I would get extremely bearish. Maybe not extremely bearish is the wrong term. I'd get extremely worried if we actually broke below this blue box right here at about 10.7, just anywhere below the white 200 simple or purple 200 benchmark moving average, which is, likely to be in this region. That would be a major warning shot to me, anywhere below there, and I think that it's likely that we have some problems, but it's not really confirmed, and it's not really appropriate to say that like I'm confirming a reversal, to an actual downtrend until we legitimately actually get below this region right over here at about 9,400. But this would be the first major warning shot at about 10.7. I would not really be looking aggressively for longs if that area to be violated to the downside. And of course, this guy down around here, that's kind of the last of the Mohicans. If we do lose this region, we're going to be talking about 8,500. We're going to be talking about gap boys getting filled all damn day, baby, and probably even lower than that, as that would really drastically change out the macros. But for right now, I do still have like kind of a bullish bias on the higher time frames. Lower time frames, they kind of float around just in the way that they typically do because they're lower time frames, the crack traded time frames, as we like to say. But more importantly, you do see that this blue box territory right here on the lower time frames on a 4-hour is actually getting things quite well as well. And where is it coming in around? About 10.6, the same area that we broke down from. So what does this imply? Well, if you do want to make a little bit of an expedited decision based upon what we looked at on the weekly, which to be fair, not really that expedited because we're going to be seeing the weekly close later tonight. If we do see a 4-hour total close above this blue box territory before then, that would probably be the earliest warning signal that I could find to actually confirm that we're likely going to break that and resolve that to the upside. So again, it's kind of coming down to the wire here. I mean, is it really going to be too much? Is it too much to ask for to wait for a weekly? Probably not, but if we did get that price action of, getting back into this blue box territory right here intraday, could you make an expedited decision? Yeah, absolutely. Or at least I believe that you could. Looking at our 4-hour oscillators, we do see 4-hour Stokes having a fresh cross the upside, and I want to see all the 1 through 4 hours align with each other. And if we actually do have that, then I would say that this is a damn good potential BART candidate right here. So here's your 4-hour Stokes headed to the upside. Okay, good. What about 3 hour? 3 hours going to be up as well. Okay, good. What about 2 hour? Do we have them up? Yes, we do. 1 hour. 1 hour's up. Oh, baby. Get your fucking dick helmets on and ready about, because holy shit, man. Is this a potential BART candidate over here? Perhaps it is, especially coming off of a massive bullwhip like this. But again, something like this is a little bit more left of center. I really want to be holding on to more tangible pieces of price action, especially when we're looking at especially you're missing the 10 SMA, says Christ. Yeah, man, I actually just don't have it on right now. I can put it on. Actually, I'm missing quite a few right now. I don't have the 89 or the 377 or the 10, as you correctly identified. But I'm just not really looking at it right now. It's just less important to what less relevant to what we were talking about. But yeah, we can look at it right here, and you can see that it is relevant on the daily. Daily did actually the way that I read the daily right now is that we're just caught between the yellow 21 and the red 10 simple. But more importantly, we're finding the yellow 21 as support. The red 10 simple is now a gatekeeper. More importantly. So if we can get back above, if we can close another daily total above it, then probably trend back up to our last little prior high at about 12,100-ish region, something like that, which does bring me to my next counterpoint. So is it time to get all fucking dicks out bullish? No, not necessarily. In fact, daily Stokes are pointing to the downside right now. I really dislike trading against daily Stokes. They've been phenomenal. They've been absolutely fucking phenomenal with getting the right price action moves I was going to say for the last 6 months, but no, they've been getting them pretty damn well for ever since I can remember on Bitcoin, actually, especially with these settings. But more importantly, with regards to that, do we see daily RSI hinting at any sort of, negativity? And not so much. Yes, we did have a little bit of bearish divergence going on right here, but I believe that that's mostly played out with our retest back down to the yellow 21. To me, this is a little bit more on the not so bullish side, as we do break the exponential to the downside on this baby. But I would say that overall, this is constructive behavior on the whole, which makes me want to look at higher time frames, kind of resolve this one and kind of like come up with a more long-term trajectory of it. And we do see 2-day Stokes straight to the sky right on over here. They're going to be getting into the bullish control zone on the next tick, most likely. They are diverging away from each other quite aggressively as well. So the trend is strong here, or the momentum is strong, I should say. And then look at this 2-day RSI actually rallying off of the exponential. I would say that this is significantly more important, especially on a 24/7 market. The 2-day digital time frame is going to get things more or less better. And when we do see right on over here, is we do see actually a nice little falling wedge coming off the RSI signature. Something like this is what we're looking at. Which I'd put a lot more weight on formations in RSI, and this would suggest that we probably do bounce off the exponential and probably work our way into the bullish control zone right in over here, which would imply obviously upwards momentum. So I would give the nod here to the 2-day, but I did want to represent that it's not necessarily one-sided here. The daily would offer up a counterpoint, but here's the thing: 2-day, how's the 2-day looking? Well, look at this right here. We're about to see the red 10 symbol cross the upside of the yellow 21 exponential moving average, which to me that's a very powerful cross, especially on a time frame like this. The last time that we got a cross like this was, let's actually take everything off except for those two guys so we can accurately see them quite well. But there we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, the last time that we actually saw them cross the upside was right in over here, literally on 24th of February, leading up from this little accumulation in the last little drive before massive bull splurts to the upside right there. And by the same token, to the downside, we saw them cross. We saw the bearish cross happen right in over here in September of 2018, and it basically drove Bitcoin all the way down from about 6,600 to 3,100, so more than 100x gainer right there. You can see during periods of kind of switch up and sideways, not going to be as good, not going to be as relevant. You see a pretty bad, well, it's actually not a bad signal right here, as you do get in profit by a couple $1,000, but you're not really getting those massive trending moves. It's on the wrong side. It's a little bit too slow for something like that. But more importantly, when we're on the same side as the macro trend, it's pretty damn good. So we actually are seeing this confirmed, I believe last night, or sorry, I wouldn't necessarily consider this confirmed yet. I'll consider it confirmed on the next tick, which we should be getting tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is what it looks like. So again, that's what I'd be looking at right on over from here. We do see, like I said, 2-day Stokes up. We saw a 2-day RSI up. We even saw the 2-day Joule just shoot right past the slower moving oscillator, which is a good sign, but not really too much else to be gained from looking at that right now. It's kind of in no man's land, essentially. And then we bring it over to the 3-day to kind of smooth this out. 3-day Stokes having a fresh cross the upside, which to me is very powerful because we see both the 3-day and the 2-day lining up with each other. And very rarely do we see these guys line up with each other. The last time that we saw them line up with each other was back on over here to the upside on the 9th of February. It looks like, when Bitcoin was about $3,500 leading up to this major breakout. And then we saw them cross to the downside concurrently together right on over here in late June, which sent Bitcoin from about $14,000 to, $9,000, over a few weeks. It's pretty nasty, right? Anyways, my point is that overall, I do look at this as as longer term, certainly more on the bullish side. So putting all of the different puzzle pieces together and saying that we are right at that major pivot on the weekly, I would say that, I certainly do lean to the upside here, whether it's, today or next week or the week after. I do think that Bitcoin's going to give a legitimate shot, And if we just go over to the weekly right and over here, we can see that weekly Stokes are actually pretty weak to the downside right now as well. So of course, keeping in mind the 2-day and 3-day signature and then lining up with the weekly, which of course, those are most relevant to it, we do see that if those guys are going to be headed up right here and the weekly is kind of weak to the downside, looking like it actually wants to have a little bit of drama around the edge of the bullish control zone, I would say that is, something to keep an eye on. It's obviously not confirmed right now, and technically it's still down. I mean, this would not be good. But what I want to see is something similar to what we saw right over here during like the massive parabolic rally during 2017, where we get this nice signature where the weekly Stokes come down to the edge of the bullish control zone and then just tighten up and wind up for about a year and a half here, and that produces all this price action. And again, Bitcoin kind of approaching a major massive macro area. If we do break, again, if we do break this critical area right here, this is what the whole goddamn stream's about. This area right here on the weekly. If we do break this, we will very likely see the weekly Stokes cross the upside, and that's going to further confirm that move and going to make me much more confident to see, you know, at the very least 14,000, but really, you know, up here towards about 16 to 17,000 region over time. So this is a big this is a big pivot on price action right now. We also see weekly RSI looking like it wants to retake the exponential here. If we could get that, that would also be a good confirming factor. But first and foremost, price action. Price action takes precedence, especially on a major macro area like this. And while I do think that it eventually breaks out to the upside, timing this next move is going to be the next probably major play for Bitcoin land. You know, could it be that Bitcoin breaks down from here? Yes, like we spoke about earlier, but the areas of concern are well defined. 10.7, that's a big area going forwards here, and then of course 9.495 is going to be like the last of the Mohicans. Before it's like, okay, it's you can't really be bullish after that one's taken out. But for right now, I'd say that we're a lot more closer to breaking the resistance, fucking obviously. So it's time to be talking about, you know, the bullish resolution of this rather than a bearish resolution of this. Anyways, pairing this up with our higher time frames like the monthly, I think that this is appropriate as well to kind of get a general gauge of the higher time frames as well. And we do see a nice signature going on right here. This looks like a beautiful consolidation coming off the highs and getting ready to trend once again. So what I want to see is my momentum oscillators pointed up. We do see, oh my god, girthy Stokes right there, getting back in the neutral zone, not bad. And we see monthly RSI working its way into the bullish control zone. So I really like what I see here actually. Throwing on the Trollinger Bands, I think that this is a phenomenal setup. A couple months of profit taking dildos right in over here, and then this month looks like it wants to actually push this. So the second that we actually get a closure above the top Trollinger Band, which is currently coming in around 12,200, then I'd be looking for a general retest of our prior highs, which is about 20,000 bucks, which would line up with what we spoke about at the beginning of this video, talking about the 4-hour golden cross results, which typically result in a 2x of price action from the time of the crossing, usually within the course of about 2 to 4 months, which that would put us at a little bit above 20,000, and it would put us, you know, basically be on the same time frame, which would line up with our quarterly, because of course, you know, when we're talking about the higher time frames, let's talk about the goddamn quarterly, which look at the quarterly, look at where the quarterly closed on the last one. Phenomenal closure. This is typically what you see for a setup before you actually start to push the top the top bands, like you saw right over here during 2016 to 2018. And we see our momentum oscillators in the same posturing. Of course, we see the quarterly Stokes looking like they want to cross the upside, rejecting as well the bearish control zone. This is big stuff right here. This is really big stuff. So you can see the downstream of effects from all of the higher time frames and how to lead on to the next one, and you can get them all on the same side right now. And that's when typically massive pieces of price action emerge, especially in Bitcoin land, which is just extra volatile to begin with. And then looking at quarterly RSI, we've regained the exponential right here as well. So I'd say all higher time frames are looking fine to me. But just because the higher time frames are looking fine doesn't mean that the lower time frames can play out some downside. Of course they can. You know, we're talking about big ranges here. We're talking about big, massive numbers. We're talking about girthy numbers, you know, big, throbbing numbers in your face. But my point is that you know, looking at something like this, the general trajectory on the higher time frames does paint certainly a much more bullish picture. Anyways, actually, did I just miss something here? Yeah, okay, no, I won't mention that. Let's go check out the expected moves chart with regards to historical volatility, and let's see what we got running over here. We do people messaging me, asking me I get like the weirdest messages on TradingView. I fucking hate it when people message me on TradingView. It's always like, hey man, can I have your indicator? It's like, well, did you invest in it like everyone else who has a right to it? No. But can I still have it? It's like, no. Where do you get these ideas, man? This is like really fucking rude. What's up? Hey, what's up, Chris MM? How you doing, man? Anyways, back on the daily right here. We do see that the first standard deviation is kind of taking us between about 11,000 and 11,006. So we did accurately kind of grab hold of the first standard deviation to the downside right here, which tells us what? It tells us that this consolidation is once again getting picked up on the most likely area, which says that we're still in an orderly consolidation most likely. As long as we hold the first standard deviation, I don't really see any sort of major change in behavior. I just consider this just one consolidation essentially. That's all. And kind of wicking off the edge of this of this first standard deviation, I'd say that would line up with this likely just continuing on as a nice orderly consolidation And again, you know, as long as we hold that, there's no real reason to be even looking for like massive downsides here. What's going on over here? Jesus Christ, man. So the expected moves is a private indicator. Yes, it's literally exactly what I just said, man. Yeah, man. Again, and I don't mean to sound arrogant when I say that, but it's also like a little bit rude when people just demand things. Like, what the fuck, man? Give out this information for free. I don't have to. So I'd appreciate, you know, a little bit of respect. Anyways, looking at the daily right here, you know, it would also suggest that if we can even just break above this first standard deviation at about 11.5, this one actually has it at about 11.6. That would be a change of behavior, and we'd be likely ready to trend to the upside once again. Of course, putting this into confluence with what we looked at on the lower time frames on Bitcoin spot, right? So that adds up. It's a little bit higher. It would be about 11.6 on this one, which actually on the lower time frames, I do believe that 11.6 works, although on the higher time frames, like a weekly close anywhere above 11.5 is damn good. Anyways, looking at this right here, you know, just kind of remind myself on the lower time frames, 4 hour does have that nice blue box territory within this region right here. So that would be concurrent with the edge of the first standard deviation. So it does line up relatively well, and it would be, it kind of confirms that, hey, if you want a lower time frame way of looking at this next potential major breakout, this is the area that I'd be looking at right on over here. Although again, to be 100% clear, it's the weekly above about 11,500 is what I really want to see in order to get a little bit more, you know, bullish, a little bit more bull tart, a little bit more, if I can, is what I'd be looking for. Anyways, go check out CMEs, which, by the way, CMEs, remember, they've been closed all weekend. They have not been trading since Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And look at this. They closed as a very orderly, they closed as like the most obvious fucking symmetrical triangle ever right on over here. And they're probably going to open up, I would imagine, somewhere down around here at about 11.4 region. Anyways, more importantly, from CME perspective, until we actually get them opened back up again at 6 p.m. Eastern time, it is a little bit difficult to it is a little bit difficult to analyze this. But I would say that would also mean if we do see spot prices trading above, well, right now they're below. So let's start off with below. If we see spot prices trading below where CME is closed on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, then it's probably going to be a sell on the gap fill for a little bit of a of a quick scalp if you want like the easy trade. But I'm not necessarily certain I would be taking that right now, just because the CMEs did close pretty damn well over here. It's very orderly, very nice, and I do think that if I was just looking at CMEs, I'd say that this is a very obvious cup and handle, and we're getting ready for much higher prices. I mean, and shit, this is probably one of the most obvious ones ever. In fact, looking at this right here, we do see nice little measure move pointed towards that 14,600ish region. Anyways, that's on CMEs, which obviously have a massive, not a massive, but a nice little premium on price action here. Anyways, taking these guys off, and just kind of showing the confluences with them. More importantly, what I'd actually really want to see, and this again, this would be making things a little bit too easy, which of course Bitcoin's not going to do for us. But if this were to happen, this would make this significantly more easy. If we actually see spot prices get above where CME is closed on Friday, then that would be an obvious buy the retest of the gap, and that's typically what you see before you get like explosions in price actions, like actual major breakouts. Of course, right now we're a few $100 below. In fact, let's actually measure this one out. If CME is closed on Friday at 6 p.m., so it's 13 o'clock on my computer here because I'm on Helsinki's time still on the 9th of August. See where spot prices were. So 13 o'clock. Let's see where that kind of lines up with, and that should be right here. No, here. No, it's right around here. So it's about 11,700ish region. So if Bitcoin could get back above that region before 6 p.m. Eastern time today on Sunday, then that would be also considered extremely bullish. But of course, there's more tangible ways of looking at this. Just even getting back above this region right here would be pretty damn impressive. Again, has to happen in that time frame though, if that is going to be the way to be looking at it. Let's go check out a few other things actually right on over here. Let's go look at the Bitcoin network momentum, get a little bit more into the fundamentals of this baby. And I wanted to see something new going on here because we've been tracking this for quite some time, right? And if you're not familiar with this, the network momentum is essentially looking into the value transmitted through the Bitcoin blockchain denominated in Bitcoin, value plotted against Bitcoin's price. It essentially serves as a leading indicator especially in bull markets. So you see a very obvious signature being put in right here with the brown oscillator, which is representing the network momentum, and then the yellow line chart, which is, well, just price. And you do see that when Bitcoin puts in a nice higher highs and higher lows on the network momentum, we actually start to get a nice little uptrend on price action. So it correlates well. And then once Bitcoin actually starts to break out, once Bitcoin starts to actually break out of this formation right over here, we do see a whole new signature take over as Bitcoin, starts to trend to the upside once again. We see we see the trend reverse, right? On the oscillator first, on the network momentum first. We see lower highs and lower lows first, breaks this same area that we broke out of on the past prior market cycle, and then boom, down. Next high is kind of put in a little bit after the fact though. It's not a leading indicator on the downside, by the way, unless you're just looking at the trend, but you can look at it both ways, I suppose. Anyways, more importantly, and what we really want to focus on here is this sort of signature that we see right here, right? Bitcoin's downtrending, lower lows, lower highs all the way through, and then we pop up and we create our first higher low and higher high right here. But more importantly, this happens concurrently with getting back above that last little ledge that we saw from the past prior bull market. Remember, when the brown oscillator breaks above this region, like your past prior high right here, and makes its next higher high, that's when the momentum really began to the upside. Similar to what you see right over here, right? Bitcoin puts in a higher low and a higher high, but it breaks this area from the past market cycle, and then boom, massive increase on price action for the next few years. That's your momentum being gained right on over here. That's what we're looking at. Then we create, oh, motherfucker. Oh man, I just fucked that one up pretty bad. Let me just refresh this. There we go. Okay, great. And then so we do the same thing once again. Bitcoin puts in its bull market, bases off this horizontal right here, and then we start to do lower lows and lower highs, puts in the highs right here, then break below this critical point more importantly, and that puts in our bear market cycle for the next year right on over here, and then boom, put in a low. Now we get to play that game that we're just looking at. Is Bitcoin over here putting in a lower high, or are we going to be setting a higher low? And what I was really hoping for this week to reveal was an actual kind of flattening out of that brown oscillator, right? But we don't actually have that. In fact, it's still nosediving to the downside. In fact, I'd even go as far as saying that it might have increased its slope to the downside. Let's zoom in on this one. I do want to get a very, very close look on this. And yes, you actually do see that it's quite literally accelerating to the downside right here. So this is probably the biggest counterpoint to what to just any sort of bullish sentiments in my mind. Looking at something like this would suggest that it's not as healthy as meets the eye on the actual price action. More importantly, looking at this, we've still yet to get a higher high. I believe that this area right here just came just shy of getting a higher high, and more importantly, we haven't even gotten a higher low. So again, well, I mean, I guess this wouldn't even really be a higher high. We don't even have a higher low to begin with. So overall, the big news here is that we actually haven't seen what we would expect to see if this was to be, an actual massive turning point just yet. And more importantly, it's not until we get back above this region right here, which kind of created the last little bull market cycle, where momentum really starts to accelerate. And when I say accelerate, I'm talking about, a price increase from about $400 to $20,000. And from the time before that, I mean, I don't remember what the price was right in over here, but you can see that things pretty much, like fucking tripled, quadrupled, whatever it was. It was pretty massive increasements in a relatively short amount of time, over the course of a couple of years. Anyways, my point is right now we're very far away from this region right over here, which would denote the massive momentum being gained on price action, and by an even more proximal note, we haven't even created a higher low on this guy just yet. It's unconfirmed, and it's still nosediving right now. So that is concerning right now. That is a little bit concerning, and would be the biggest counterpoint to what I'm saying. And would be the biggest counterpoint to what I see on price action, because everything that I see on price action looks more or less good. The fundamental indicators are more or less good as well. But I would say that that one in particular would offer up the biggest counterpoint, and that's the biggest one that I've been really waiting for. Let's also get on to something else that I've been referring to recently as well. And I got this one completely wrong the other day. It's a Bitcoin difficulty ribbon, right? And I was talking about how its relation to price action, is basically just when we're above or below. That's actually not the right way to be using it, or at least not the way that it's intended to be used. Although it does seem to hold some weight, but it's not the way that's intended to be used. What we see here is actually something a little bit more obvious. So when this ribbon is expanding, we see that Bitcoin is actually trending. When the ribbon contracts, we see that Bitcoin is essentially consolidating, and because the macro trend has been to the upside, it's usually during the periods of downwards price action, but setting up for the next major explosion to the upside. So, for example, you see this one right on over here. They all contract on each other. They're all kind of brought in. They converge, and then when it expands right on over here, boom, massive increase in price action. Then for the next market cycle right on over here, you see them contract, and then they come extremely close. That wraps up this whole consolidation consolidation right here, similar to this consolidation right over here, and then expansion once again as we trend up for the next few years. And then what do we see in 2018, 2019? Well, we see them contract on each other once again right over here. And right now, just as of this like last couple weeks of price action, we see them actually start to diverge from each other once again. So is Bitcoin going to start trending once again? This is what this would suggest. So I wanted to line up two counterpoints. I wanted to line up the first fundamental, which is painting a less bullish picture, and then this fundamental, which is painting a pretty fucking massively bullish picture right here, to be fair. So which one do I put more weight on? Well, I want to see them actually operate together, but the difficulty ribbon I'd put more weight on, just because it does seem like a little bit more of a tangible indicator. And if you're not familiar with it, the difficulty ribbon speaks to the impact of miner selling pressure on Bitcoin price action. When network difficulty reduces its rate of climb, miners are going out of business, leaving only the strong miners who proportionally need to sell less of their coins to remain operational. So while I think that that's kind of an incomplete statement and not necessarily valid for the whole and doesn't really incorporate a lot of things that are going to go into that calculation, it does more or less get things right, more importantly. And that's tangible. So I'd rather be running with that. Anyways, go check out the crypto fear and greed index as well, which is ticking out of 45. Bitcoin's still in a fearful zone. People are still quite fearful. So sentiments on Bitcoin are, more or less neutral, but you have to realize that when we're in kind of a macro uptrend and sentiment is even on the neutral side, and technically a little bit on the more bearish side right here, that would be in a sense more that in a sense would be more accountable for what's the word that I'm looking for? It'd be in a sense more accountable for kind of what you'd expect during your no, let me explain it this way. The better way to explain it is this. Okay, so when we're looking at the past on the crypto fear and greed index, we can look at the past bear market cycle, right? The past bear market cycle was basically everything before January 2019 right here. And you can see that Bitcoin was essentially hanging out a long time around the 20 marker on this, which is the extremely fearful zone. And this was when Bitcoin was like on its lows, during 6,000 and then during 3,000-ish region. Whenever Bitcoin would come down to those regions, it would get extremely low here into like the 20-ish marker. You can see that Bitcoin on the fear and greed index got all the way down into that region actually very recently, even when Bitcoin was coming down to the 9,000 level right in over here, or not even 9,000, but like 9,500 right in over here, right? But the reaction from this was doubly expansive because when people are getting extremely fearful in an overall general macro uptrend, the response is going to be more emotional, right? More emotional to the upside in calling these sorts of lows. So it does help accurately gauge where we're going to be putting in the lows on these consolidations rather than actual, reversals on price action or anything like that. It's actually kind of telling us the opposite in a funny way. And that's kind of what I believe we're seeing right over here. When we see Bitcoin technically in a fearful zone, but I'm just going to consider this neutral, with regards to it. I would say that would line up with price action being in a more bullish posture right over here from a sentiment standpoint, which is what I feel. I feel that right now it's kind of evenly split between bears and bulls. And of course, if you ask a fucking bear if everyone else is bearish, and they say no, everyone else is bullish, and if you ask a bull if everyone else is bullish, they say no, everyone else is bearish. It's like, no, shut the fuck up. There's pretty much equal. It's pretty much equally split right now, and that's well represented by the fear and greed index. We're pretty much in the middle. So my point is that when you're in the middle, when you're neutral, you always go, not always go, but it's the trader's way is to go with the statistics, right? And the statistics here in a trend to the upside is going to be to the upside, right? So that's my point. And again, it just kind of underlines an underlying market dynamic, which would suggest that if you're going to err on one side, err on the side of bullishness. Anyways, let's go check out the other top two shitcoins. I want to look at Mrs. Litecoin first, and Mrs. Litecoin bouncing off perfectly off the 200 moving average that we were looking at yesterday. And again, this is why I was saying this was a massive area of price action. While Mrs. Litecoin did come back down and test it, she never broke it. And more importantly, this is what I was saying. Hey, if I'm not going to be bearish on Bitcoin in this region, Litecoin's probably not going to break coming down to a major support. So I would say that a few things are really notable here. Remember, we want to see this market more or less move together. And I think that it's going to be extremely unlikely that you see Litecoin break down below a very critical support. I mean, this is the 200 simple, and and 377 exponential moving average on the daily. They're going to be bought just by the nature of them, especially on a test like this when we're kind of in a sideways consolidation here. You can see you can just kind of map out a nice little triangle. In fact, if I put on my drawing tools, I think I already have it in there. Yeah, there we go. And while Mrs. Litecoin is below the purple 200 exponential moving average right now, I would say that the test to the downside has been met. And right now, I would be looking for this to continue onwards and upwards and test around at least 92 and a half to 93 bucks over the next over the next week or so. But more importantly, this has been unresolved as the overall consolidation. I do see this as an opportunity to the downside in confluence with Bitcoin coming down as well and bouncing off a critical area like this. I would say that it likely does salvage itself. Again, I just very rarely do we see the market bifurcated in the sense that like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Buteral are all moving in different directions versus the US dollar pairing versus Bitcoin pairing. Of course, it's how it's designed. There's going to be all sorts of fuckery going on with that one. But with the US dollar pairing, typically we see things moving in the general same direction on higher time frames. And here, and I don't really have any reason to believe that we're not going to be seeing that right here. Yes, Litecoin did have a little bit of a fundamental event recently with the halvening going on and all that good stuff. But more importantly, the damage I believe has been done here, and I don't think that it's appropriate to be bearish coming off. One of my big rules is just don't be bearish coming off a region like this until it's actually officially broken with an open and closed blow. And you can see that we've clearly bounced off of it pretty damn well. So it is showing that the bots and algos are picking it up off that price action, and it's telling us that, hey, don't be bearish in this region until we actually break from a higher time frame perspective. If we do break, however, if we actually do break, then hey, then I'm happy to target moves all the way down to 60, 67, 68 bucks. It could get fucking nasty, but for right now, I think it's too premature to be saying anything like that. And more importantly, if we do break it out to the upside with any sort of a daily dollar close above, let's call it like 96 and a half bucks, I'd be looking back around 114, 115-ish region, which I do believe probably does, inevitably get hit over time. Here's the other big thing as well. Keep in mind the weekly. The weekly is going to be closing today, of course, with Bitcoin as well. As it stands, fucking ugly, super fucking ugly, but really fucking ugly, to be fair, but still not getting the job done on the lower time frames to get that actual continuation. And keep your eyes on the last few hours of the day, because we're likely to see some price action posturing around that region. And I imagine that if Litecoin gets back above the yellow 21 at 93 and a half bucks, that's going to be your first big signal that long term this is going to morph into accumulation. We're going to work our way back up to the prior high and beyond if that happens. But of course, it's still a little bit too early to say that. And right now, we're well below it, to be fair. So it's not happening right now. But if we did get that signature by end of close today, then yes, I'd be bullish on this one, and I'd be targeting a move basically back to its prior highs and probably beyond over time. Let's see what our oscillators saying. We see weekly Stokes really nosediving here, having a really bad time. Weekly RSI actually breaking below the neutral zone as well. Not looking good either, to be fair. And daily Stokes getting down there. Daily oscillators are completely different than Bitcoin actually, and daily RSI is bearish. So there are, it's certainly it's not the most healthy chart of all time. But like I said, I can't get bearish on this guy or gal or whatever fucking gender pronoun that you'd prefer these days until we actually break below about 82 bucks. If we can break below 82 bucks, close a couple of dailies below there, then yeah, I'm going to be targeting moves much lower, and we can talk about how Litecoin's going to get wrecked or how bad Litecoin's going to get wrecked. But for right now, I don't think it's appropriate. I think that was just an opportunity to kind of buy on a major support, and typically speaking, that is, those opportunities are few and far between actually, especially when you see these two things kind of lining up with each other. Anyways, back on to Mr. Buteral right here. And what do we see? Mr. Buteral kind of coming in the same posturing as well. I do consider this a test of the 200 simple moving average, which we've been kind of holding up valiantly. But overall, it is kind of forming into a bear flag right here. I mean, this is a rising channel coming off of a little bit of a downtrend. It is a bear flag. Measured move off this bear flag would be pointing all the way down towards 130. But same thing as Litecoin. Do I think that Mr. Buteral is going to break down here if Bitcoin doesn't? No, probably not. We just very rarely see a signature like that. Same thing with Litecoin. Although Buteral's posturing here is much worse than Litecoin. Well, is it much worse than Litecoin? I don't know if it's much worse than Litecoin. Let's go check it out. Yeah, I would say it's worse than Litecoin's. Yes. You know, again, same sort of deal here. Until Mr. Beater actually breaks healthily below, let's call it like 196. No, let's just use a 200 simple. Let's call it 195 and keep it simple. Until we actually break below there, I don't think that you're going to get one of those major flushes in price action. Again, just because Bitcoin, I do think is going to put the rest of the market in his backpack and carry it up. But if we do break below, if we do break below 195, then yes, I'd be looking at moves. First target would be about 180. Second target would be technically, like I said, 130. But I do have a hard, like I said, I'm not looking for that to happen. Weekly, atrocious, fucking god-awful, pathetic, just disgusting is what it is. Terrible, absolutely terrible. The weekly is bad. The weekly is really fucking bad. The weekly is they're coming for you. They're coming for you right now, Mr. Beaterall. You're in trouble, baby. But again, if Bitcoin pulls through here, I'd imagine you're going to see some fuckery go on with most of these bullshit. No, it's not. Sorry, not bullshit, but amazing, highly altruistic altcoins pulling through as well. Anyway, speaking of, let's go check out the Bitcoin dominance chart. I'm going to imagine that it probably did top out yesterday. And yes, we do see a little bit of a toppy action going on right here. We got all the way to 71.5%, coming down to 70.25 right now. And I do think, and I think I was saying about 72.25 is where I was looking for on this move. I'd say that this is close enough right here. That's pretty damn on the money as far as that goes. So this pullback, likely to get extended. So I do think that altcoins get a little bit more of a reprieve here. Probably have some bearish divergence here, or do we? No, we don't. We actually don't. Well, unless you consider this point, but I think that's a little bit too far away from my own liking. More importantly, I do think that we have a little bit of downside here, back down to like 69.5% region, which is going to allow alts to rally up a little bit. So I'm going to imagine that probably like your Cardanios of the world are digging in a little bit and putting up a little bit of a rally. And there you go. Exactly what you'd expect right here. Not bad, Mr. Cardanio. Not bad. Do we have any sort of bullish divergences coming off on a move like this? Come on, get over here, you little fucker. No, not really, actually. What about a weekly? How's the weekly going to be closing? Weekly still looks like absolute dog shit. I mean, it's terrible. So I do think that while this bounce does get carried onwards and upwards a little bit higher, I'm not necessarily convinced that this is, quote unquote, the low. If you want to get into altcoins, I'm not necessarily convinced that this is it just yet. I need to see a lot more. I mean, this is just your first pop. How many first pops have you seen that just get sold into over time? I mean, just pretty much every single one of them. Actually, it's pretty fucking bad. Anyways, let's go check out. Do we want to check out? Let's go check out gold, actually, because gold and Bitcoin have had some pretty massive correlations. So let's actually first show this correlation. The correlation is fucking strong right now, actually. Let me get back onto it right on over here. There we go. Correlation coefficient. Mr. Ballypoor, credible for this one. And what do we see here? Well, actually, the daily is pretty correlated, but it's the weekly that I really want to be aware of. This purple histogram showing a correlation extremely high at about 84, 85 region, which is massively correlated. Again, as historical volatility percentile is coming out from a bottoming posturing and now trending to the upside above this. What is this telling us? Essentially that gold's breakout is real. And I've been saying this for a while. It's hit all of our targets thus far. I do think that this ultimately goes higher now, but it's kind of like using the force now to kind of gauge price targets. I'm not really going off of anything, just going off of like past prior action, which is certainly very much valid. But it's not like I have a major massive measure move pointed higher. My highest one was about 15, 13-ish region. Now kind of a little bit flying blind, but I do think that this continues over time. Probably a little bit of a sideways action here, but more importantly, confluent with Bitcoin, do we get the big breakout on Bitcoin? Similar to what we saw on gold, or similar to what we're seeing on gold? I'd say that this would suggest yes. So yes, we do see some like that. The correlation is extremely high right now, extremely fucking high. It's getting damn close to. Very rarely do you see something that high. Going into the lower time frames here, it does look like we're trying to put in a nice little consolidation right here. So perhaps I could say that we do have another measure move pointed a little bit higher towards 15.25, but this one's not. This one's a little bit too early to really judge it. But more importantly, if we're putting a nice consolidation right here at resistance on gold, which is highly correlated with Bitcoin, and we see it break out, then that's going to be another confluential factor for looking for Bitcoin to take out this next major macro area. Which, remember, the next major macro area is essentially the area that we're at right now, about 11.5, 11.6 region. So if that area starts to get violated, well, you could probably get a little bit of an early trade in, most likely. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I actually won't even be taking that trade myself because I'm already pretty fucking long. But looking over here, I just want to take a quick look at Link rallying off our bottom area. I actually got a little bit lower, to be fair. I think I was saying like 19,000 satoshis where I'd be looking at for a little bit of a bottom being put in here, but decided to go a little bit lower. So I'm not going to be completely precise on that, but that's okay. Again, good enough is good enough. The general trajectory of this one is just a sideways consolidation. accumulation here. I don't think that we're seeing anything crazy going on. I always like to check in with Link just because he has been a little bit of an outlier compared to the general market over the past year. So using him as a sentiment gauge has been worthy. Anyways, going back on over into Bitcoin, and because this is a Sunday, and we can talk about some more long-term bullshit. Let's talk about this bullshit. Let's talk about the matrix right in over here, which I'm going to describe by, I guess, going through the whole kit and caboodle here. Each and every one of these dotted trend lines is a support trend line for a parabolic market cycle, each and every one in Bitcoin's history. So we start off with this first one right over here in 2010 and 2011. And that becomes, sorry, that's a support trend line. That's what we rally off of for that for this parabolic market cycle. It gets broken in 2012 right here, and that becomes our highs over next subsequent market cycles right here in 2013 and then 2014 right on over here. Then we create another support trend line for this next parabolic market cycle anchored in 2011 and 2012 right on over here. It gets broken in end of 2014, 2015 right here. You can actually see a first rejection right here, and then of course gets our highs in 2017, 2018 market cycle right on over here as well. Then we create another support trend line for this next parabolic market cycle, the one that we actually just played out, anchored in 2015 and 2016 right on over here. That gets broken on the major massive move down below the weekly 200 exponential moving average right here. So concurrent with it, very, very important, because that is going to become a massive pivot going onwards and forwards here. And then you do see that Bitcoin comes down, puts in this next low right here. And more importantly, now we've done something that we actually haven't done before. We see Bitcoin breaking back above this dotted trend line right here. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that Bitcoin is might actually be a little more interesting than than we first considered. But my point is here, like the more tangible points before I get into like the more ephemeral, airy fairy type bullshit is essentially this. And I think the better chart to represent this is maybe a cleaner one on Bitstamp. But basically this trend line right here, the one that we were just looking at in question, has been a damn good actionable trend line throughout the history of Bitcoin. In fact, you do see that when Bitcoin was below it right and over here, this was a great accumulation point for traders. It was a great place to sell on when we were below it, and then once we broke above it, well, that massive extremely parabolic moves straight afterwards. I mean, we're talking about moves like literally fucking 50%, then add on another fucking 6,000% right there. Not bad. Anyways, more importantly, for the next few years, we come down and we only base off this trend line right here, this dotted trend line, once again, the same one that we were looking at on the macro time frames on the BLX index. And what happens after that, we hold it we literally base off of it for like 2 years during 2015 to 2016, and then boom, parabolic once again, and then we break it back down with on the same area that we were just looking at before, below the purple 200 exponential moving average on the weekly, and then we get the same exact behavior over here that we see over here. Same exact behavior. In fact, it's quite uncanny. I was quite shocked to see this. I was not looking for this to happen when we were coming down to this region in December of last year. But more importantly, we see the same sort of reaction, right? When we're below this dotted trend line, it's a phenomenal accumulation zone for the long-term hodlers, and for the traders. Selling on this trend line was pretty damn profitable until we actually broke to the upside. Once we break to the upside, boom, massive parabolic rallies once again. And I'd imagine that we probably if we go off of history, we do probably see something similar to what we saw before. But that also means going forwards from here, and we're getting into into the more fun stuff now. As long as Bitcoin is above this dotted trend line, and actually let's go back to the BLX index right here. As long as Bitcoin's above this dotted trend line right here, I am macro bullish. I'm essentially macro bullish, and I have no reason not to be, essentially. And more importantly, you can see that this trend line is coming in line with the 3-day green 50 exponential moving average right on over here. Anyways, let's see what else we got. Just reading some of the comments, man. Jesus Christ, man. What is going on there? Jesus Christ, man. Anyways, this dotted trend line now going forwards, as long as we're above it, I would say that Bitcoin is just generally macro bullish. That also means Bitcoin can come down to it, but as you can see, it rises up quite aggressively over time. And if we get anything to what we saw right over here during the past market cycle during 2015 to 2016, these lows, then we can use this as a bottoming area potentially for major buys, and also just as a pivot on the market cycles in general. As long as we're above it, generally bullish; below it, generally bearish. Kind of, but bearish isn't even the right word when you look at it from a higher time frame perspective. See these as kind of more like accumulation zones, like zones of opportunity. Although it tested for a while, to be fair. Anyways. looking at this right here, we can now come up with price targets or potential price targets for potential lows for years to come. So just to put this in perspective, we could even go to the beginning of 2020. We could say that the low of this trend line would be coming in right around here, right around about $13,000, literally above where we are right now. So you can imagine that if Bitcoin has this trend line protecting it, in a way, it doesn't mean that it can't break it to the downside. It just means that if it breaks to the downside, we're in for a lot more hurt. But as you've seen in the past, when we break above it, we typically hold above it for years at a time. So as long as we hold above it, the low of this would actually suggest that we'd get higher than where we are right now by end of year. And of course, this would concurrently break the current area that we're looking at about the 11.6 or 12.3 region, depending upon which time frame you're looking at. And more importantly, if that area is going to be higher than where we are at the end of the year, then we could say that as long as the trend, this is a bullshit statement. Like as long as the trend continues, then obviously we're going to say bullish. But we can make inferences into what we looked at the beginning of this video, that hey, if we start to break those areas, then we start to see measure moves, and we start to see things evolving much higher back towards $20,000, and all those things start to take on a new level of validity just based off of this as well. So I would say that all these things work together concurrently and create a very nice case for the next what do you want to call it, basically until end of year, as we were looking at before. So I did want to speak about that very briefly. A little bit more fucking hocus pocus Peter Pan bullshit. But I do think that it's insane enough at this point in time because so many things are really starting to line up. Anyways, back down into the lower time frames here. Bitcoin having some downside drama once again. So I would be careful. I would be cautious on these time frames as it is right now, just because it's we're still in kind of no man's land right here. We're still in no man's land right here, and there's no like major massive trades to be had at this point in time. It's mostly speculation, but things are shaping up more and more as time goes on. So let's start to wrap this bitch up and talk about the most important piece of price action. And I'll just kind of do most of this actually on the 4 hour right here. Actually, no, before we do that, let's go back on over here to Finex. I do want to talk about this for a second. A lot of people got faked out by this. And this is why I was talking about it over the last few days. Remember this trend line right here. A lot of people got faked out on this one. In fact, I see people having a I see people having a conversation in the chats right now about a certain someone who might have been who might have violated this. And this will be a good lesson right here. Wow, that sounds arrogant as fuck. Sorry about that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so when you're using these dildo bodies right here and you see price action technically break out, right? We see price action technically break out right on over here during the 7th of August. But here's the thing. Whenever you get a break or whenever you get a potential breakout from a region like this, what you want to see is a continuation almost immediately. Almost fucking immediately. You don't get 2 chances to buy a breakout. Usually, more often than not, 99% of the time, but I'd say about 80% of the time, you don't get a second chance to buy the breakout, let alone a fucking 3rd and 4th chance right here. So this whole price action hanging out around this trend line was a damn good signal that this was likely to kind of fall back into line. And that's why we were saying, hey, while I am bullish in this region right here, I don't think it happens from this region right here. And of course, lining up with the 4 hour moving averages as we were looking at as well, it was a little bit too premature. And you can see now Bitcoin's actually using it as resistance on the way back up. So you can look at this now as a lever on price action, kind of protecting against those, protecting against that next level essentially. And where does this trend line come in around? 11.7. So a little bit higher than the blue box that we were looking at earlier, but it's all within the same region. And more importantly, we have another trend line up here connecting the wicks. And this is one of the few times where the wicks are probably going to be better. Usually I don't really care for wicks, but in this scenario, I do think that the wicks are going to be more accurate. If we can even just get Bitcoin back above this region right here, probably going to be good enough for a breakout regardless. So that's what I would say. That's what I would be looking for. But remember, we want to see all these things operating confluently. Is going to be like the stars aligning type trade. But that's what you're looking for when you're looking for like major breakout. We're talking thousands of dollars. I mean, shit, man, maybe even a 2x before end of year. Again, I'm saying things that I don't. It's gonna attract the wrong crowd when I say shit like that. Yeah, I need need to stop with that. Anyways, back on the lower time frames. It's all gonna come down to the weekly. If the weekly closes above, this blue box territory right here, or even inside the blue box territory at about 11,500, especially above 11,600, remember this is coming at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, then I would be looking for this to ultimately explode higher, over the next following months. First target would be somewhere around like 14,000 or a little bit under 14,000. Then we'd be talking about like 15,000 and 16,500, something like that. If we close below it, it's not a death sentence, but it would imply that we probably do test a little bit lower before anything else. We probably would test around 10.9, 10.8 before anything else, with the potential to go lower as well. But more importantly, that's what the lower time frames are for right here. So let's get into it now. On the lower time frames, we could use the same sort of area of operation as the blue box territory to the upside. However, this would have a ticking time bomb on it, because as soon as we get the weekly close tonight, then this area no longer is no longer as important on the 4 hour. Of course, on the weekly, still very much important, but we have to wait another week for a weekly total close. It'd be more like this area right here, the 12.3 to 12.4 area. If we can get above there, yeah, breakout confirmed. We can talk about all sorts of moon boy targets. By the same token, you can see a more preliminary support right here at about 11,150. That is the gatekeeper as I see it right now. It's not a huge lever on price action. Doesn't change all that much if Bitcoin were to break it, but it would say that, hey, if Bitcoin does break it, extremely likely that we get that move down to the white 200 moving average, which would be down around about 10,750. So what we're looking at, like a $400 trade, not bad. I mean, very much tradable, absolutely. And as we've seen in the in the past history, Bitcoin does come down and test either the 200 simple or 200 exponential moving average, usually within about 1.5% of margin of error each and every time that we actually get this cross and we get the two exponentials above the white 200 simple. And if you're a little bit shaky on that, just scroll back to the beginning of this video. Anyways, if we do break this blue box territory right here, that's going to be a major warning signal, though. We don't want it. You really don't want to see that if Bitcoin is to maintain its bullish posturing. And that's currently coming in around 10.7. If 10.7 gets destroyed to the downside, that would be the first major warning signal that it's not right to have a bullish bias in this region. I don't necessarily think that it wouldn't be like reversal confirmed to like new lows or anything like that either. Don't get me wrong. But it would make me go back to neutrality and make me want to let go of pretty much all my long positions if that were to happen. The area where I do start to say, hey, we're looking at a fucking reversal, hold on to your dicks right now because we're going down, would be this area right in over here at about 94, 9,500-ish region. If we break that to the downside, then big problems. But for right now, you can see that Bitcoin's a lot more close to breaking it to the upside. And as far as structure goes, and just as far as basically everything goes, more or less price action does look, does look poised here, but probably going to take its time as always, going a little bit more sideways, frustrating people, and taking its time. So I think that's going to do it for today's morning stream. Thank you for joining me on Twitch. My God, man, really fun. I'll probably do a video game stream later tonight as well. We'll do it with not just video games, but also looking at price action. Ideally what we do is I have is I can have charts on one screen and then game on another screen, and then when trades come in, switch into the charts more and focus more on that. But then while the charts are kind of while the trading's having a little bit of downside, then focus on the game and have a little bit of fun there, and take the edge off, as they say. Anyways, guys, I want to wish you a very happy and peaceful, relaxing, profitable as well Sunday morning. I'll be back on, like I said, perhaps later on Twitch, and definitely tomorrow for some more live stream action. Looking forward to seeing you there, and as always, wish you well. Take care and see you soon.